Good evening, all. Today, we're all gathered here to get inspired and motivated. A woman with a voice, by definition, is a strong woman. Our speaker, Ms. Priyanka Ramesh, a young woman entrepreneur, is going to share her life experience and wisdom for all the young minds present here. Let us all listen to her and get inspired. All your questions will be answered by the end of the session. Now, let's begin. Thank you.
Dr. Aishwarya. I now request Dr. Jeevita, the Secretary of Rotary Club of Monarchs IVM, to introduce the speaker to the gathering.
Good evening, all. It gives me immense pleasure in giving the speaker intro today. She has graduated from PSG College of Technology with a master's degree in software engineering, and she is currently a software developer with Cisco working on the Cisco AnyConnect Secure Mobility client, a unified client offering VPN and poster solutions to major corporations around the world. During her master's, she had the opportunity to intern with Scava, where she worked on their industry-leading integrated e-commerce API platform, Scava Stream. As the co-founder of the Bridge, official campus new body of PSG Tech, she played a key role in the team formation and streamlining, initial conceptualization, operations, editorial, branding, and publicity. It's been about 3.5 years since she started the Kishbox, which is an e-commerce business focused on offering unique and handmade personalized gifts. Teamy.in was started early this year and is a not-for-profit business focused on donating profits towards the goal of zero hunger. So let's welcome Ms. Priyanka Ramesh, an inspiring entrepreneur, as our guest speaker of the event today. Once again, welcome you, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so
Thank you so much. And sorry. It would be so nice before even we start this if each and every one of you turn on your video so that you can see her, she can see us. So it would be nice. Welcome you, ma'am. Like before you had your own intro and all that. Your own intro itself makes us so inspiring. And what have you done? What are you going to do and all, you know. So with no further delay, let me just start out with your questions so that I don't speak much and we hear it more from you. Okay. As always, let it go with our college life. PSG College of Technology. Tell us about your college life. Like, how did you enjoy? What made you join there and all this stuff?
So this is a very usual story. Just out of curiosity, is anyone from PSG here on call?
Yeah, I am a PhD.
Oh, nice. So my interests were very clear. So right from my schooling time, I was very much interested in computers, and I knew I wanted to do something along those lines, and I was good at it. So obviously, our families, there are only few options, right? You either do engineering or you do medicine, or just those were the paths available, sort of. And there were three reasons why I chose to do MSc software engineering over BE computer science, because the course offered in PSG, MSc is like a pure computer science course, in the sense you don't have to study any physics, chemistry, or any of those things, which I presume other engineering students sort of study in their first year. So I only wanted a pure mathematics and computer science based course. So I just went for the course. College days in PSG Tech, I would say, were very crucial in sort of molding me, sort of giving me an exposure on what I wanted to do, what I liked, and in sort of polishing my skills when it comes to, say, leadership or organizing or dealing with people. Because all those things I sort of picked up and honed all these soft skills, I would say, during my time in PSG. I was very active in all cultural activities, clubs, and academics, everything. So that way I had a lot of opportunities. Not I had, everybody has, but then you sort of make it a point to sort of involve and participate in as many opportunities you find possible, and to learn and work with people along the way. So I would say my people skills were really, I was able to build on them in college, and that is the best place where you can build on such skills. Because once you enter the workplace, people just expect you to know how to deal with people, even if you're a fresher.
So that was so nice. It enforced like all the college students here because people are new here and people don't even know what colleges may be. So
Oh, there are like first years and all also
yeah,
here?
yes, maybe. Yeah, there are few first years also.
Okay, so all of you are like what, remote studying, is it? Like online classes types?
We just tell that, but we don't study. The remote keeps going on, but then we aren't studying, I suppose.
Nice.
Yeah.
So all the freshers, yeah, whoever's new, now it's unfortunate you guys might not be in that whole college atmosphere, but then once things are normal, once you get back, try to involve yourself in as many activities and events possible, whatever interests you. Not like, oh, you have to participate in everything types, not like that, but whatever you truly are interested in, try to not just go there and study or just hang out with friends. Those are not the two things. You can try to, explore other options as well.
So I hopefully think like every one of them heard what you said. I've got that one small question, like because everyone has this, like we dream something when we are young and we become something when we are growing up. So what was your dream when you were young and what are you now?
So there is a change in the sense I haven't dropped what I wanted. So when I was growing up, I wanted to become a software professional only. Okay, I wanted to become a software engineer. Like when during my high school times, all that, I was like, what do you want to do? I want to do software engineering. And I did a corporate firm. It sort of changed. I never considered entrepreneurship as an option. So I took up entrepreneurship after that. So that sort of a switch happened. Now I am more interested in entrepreneurship than software engineering. So I guess that can happen at any time of life. Anywhere you guys can just switch over. I feel that might happen.
So yes,
but I didn't have any crazy dreams like astronaut or pilot or something like that when I was growing up. I was like a very, padaku types.
But even when you were young, is it when you were nearly like first standard, second standard, when did they ask,
that
like,
time I used to when people ask, no, what do you want to be, or you have to write this first standard essay, what you want to be and all, I used to say I want to become an IAS officer, because my dad is a government servant, so he works closely with district collectors, etc. So he used to always tell me about certain, specifically if I have to take name, there's one female collector from the Nilgiris. Her name was Supriya Sahu. So I used to be very much inspired by her in the way she was a young girl and the way she used to manage things. District administration is not a simple thing. So she was sort of an inspiration when I was little, and I used to hear firsthand accounts from my dad on all the things that she was doing. So that sort of, that was like a childhood wish for me.
So nice. Even then you had that small thing and all. Always you aimed big and you become even more big, I suppose.
I didn't become an IAS officer, unfortunately. I don't know. Once I grew up, I thought, no, that role was not suitable for me. I don't know.
Okay, nice. Because you just spoke about entrepreneurship, being a women entrepreneur, what do you think? Like, what did you face? What were the hurdles you faced, or how did the process or the way be?
So I basically didn't face like a hurdle or anything per se, because the two businesses that I am managing are both e-commerce businesses, and usually, like, I'll tell you my side of the story, so then I can sort of maybe answer your question better. So what really happened was, like, I was about 2 years into my corporate career, and then I didn't feel fulfilled. There was something else that I wanted to do, and this sort of happens if you're not really into that corporate chain. Like, I wanted to do something which meant something to me, and there was a lot of ownership where I could see the direct result of the effort and time that I was putting in and the results that I was seeing. So when you're in a big organization, that sort of, you might lose that. So this might be like too early, you guys are still in college, but first-hand account, like if you join a big organization which has a huge hierarchy, then when you're a fresher, you would join at a lowest grade, right? Like, for instance, you would join as an intern, or you would join as a some sort of a marketing or whatever be your role, you would start at a leaf level. And the efforts and hours that you put in, maybe your next level of management might sort of, identify and appreciate your work. But then the recognition doesn't escalate higher than that. It takes a lot of time. So in organizations which have a flatter hierarchy, that is not really the case. You might have a better visibility. So for me, what was missing was this lack of visibility was missing for me. And I sort of felt that I wanted to do something on my own, where I could put in the effort and work and I could see the direct result of it. And I also wanted to create some sort of a financial freedom and stability for me, in the sense that I wasn't only purely dependent on this day job of mine for my financial, requirements. So these were the three motivating factors for me to consider entrepreneurship in the first place. So obviously, when I wanted to start off, I had no, background in business, or I hadn't studied anything business related, like an MBA or any such similar course, not even in school, nowhere. So I wanted to start small and experiment and then scale from there. So I took a very calculated risk of what I wanted to do, of trying to sort of convert my passion and interest in handicrafts and artwork and crafts and, personalized gifts. So I used to always do these things right from when I was a little girl. So I just wanted to try out something, and I thought, okay, maybe if I can make extra 5,000 rupees a month by doing this in my spare time after office hours and during my weekends, I was ready to put in the work. So let me just give this a shot. So that is how I started Kitschbox initially. So there wasn't much of an investment seeking or anything like that, because I had a job and I'd been working for 2 years and I was able to save up some funds. So I could fund myself for the business needs to whatever I had to do. And every piece, and initially when I started off, obviously it was just me, and I used to do all the work, from building the website to fulfilling the orders, to shipping, logistics, customer support, social media, everything. So I didn't have to pay anybody. So the initial investment was my time and effort, in which there was a learning curve for me. I had to learn a lot of new things which I didn't know, but I was willing to do that. So that way I started off in a very safe way, in the sense, I wasn't in a situation where I'm asking my parents for money, or I'm trying to look for investors for money or any such situation. So I was able to do something in a way that I was able to gain confidence for myself that yes, I can do it. So because I started small, so I learned along the way, and then now it's been 3.5 years and I've been able to successfully deal it. And then there's a team of people who are working for the business now, and I've been able to successfully translate or replace my income from the day job with my businesses. So this, obviously, because I have been trying to juggle both these things simultaneously, maybe the growth could have been more faster if I was focusing on my entrepreneurial ventures full time. But that was the choice that I made because of family commitments and things like that. So I didn't face any challenge as a women entrepreneur, because I was very much, self-sufficient. In everything that I did, I was very self-sufficient. I didn't go asking anybody for help. I didn't go asking anybody how to do or what to do or anything. Even my parents, I started off and then the business was doing well. And there was a time when we were doing about, say, 100 or 150 orders a month initially once we started. Only at that time, my parents were like, oh, acha, okay, you're doing something and then you're seeing some results in that. Till then, they thought, okay, little girl is sitting and doing some arts and crafts projects, DIY types. They also were like, they didn't stop me from doing anything, but there wasn't anything like motivation, ki do it or you can do it. Nothing like that. I motivated myself, I did it. And then once they started seeing the result and they started seeing that it was, slowly taking off, at that time, everybody came on board. And then everybody was like, oh, this is really working. Okay. Now they are like, yeah, you can do it. Maybe you can do this. Then they become more, proactively involved. So that is the reality. Girls know, I understand. See, every business venture is different. There are some ventures which can't be started in this small scale. You might initially have to approach people. You might initially have to like pitch in your ideas to a lot of people. You might have to raise funds if you can't, fund yourself. So all these situations are there, but case to case. But the fundamental thing is you have to believe that you can do it, because everybody else will question you, irrespective of gender. When you're going and asking somebody for an investment, whether you're a guy or a girl, everybody is going to question you, because it's not easy to get somebody to invest in your business. So I feel you have to be confident that you can do it, and you have to be confident in your idea and your business plan. So that is what I would have to say, because after that, hurdles are going to be there irrespective of gender, not only for women entrepreneurs. But in fact, to be realistic, there are a lot of organizations, be it or even government organizations, which are trying to empower women entrepreneurs by giving them platforms and things like that more than men.
So yeah, your one answer would be it would be an answer for all the questions or all the people who are still waiting. What help will I get? Whose help can I go find to start a thing? So
no need. Even when it comes to a business now, like for example, take a store, or mine is e-commerce. All of you guys know how it works. So there's a website where products are listed, and then you expect people to go and buy from there, and then you ship the product. So this is basically what happens in my stores. So initially, some people have this hesitation that I don't have a lot of friends or relatives. You're not doing or starting your business in the hope that your friends and relatives will buy from you, because they won't. You don't have to expect that, and you can't expect that. You be self-fulfilled, when you feel that sense of achievement, when some random person who you've never met comes on your website and makes a purchase. That's when you feel that joy. Like my first purchase, a stranger who I have never spoken to, and when I got that first order, they've looked at the product and they've liked it, and then they bought it. I was so happy, and I got that confidence that you don't have to depend on your friends or family to actually shop from your store or to support your business. Not needed. There are so many people who would like your work. The world is big and there are a lot of people. So you just have to do it for yourself, not for anybody else, and not expecting anybody else to do anything for you. Because once you start gaining success, everybody will come, follow suit.
Nice answer. She even not knowing what you were speaking, but still she had to say something. How happy are you in doing all this? Because you mentioned happiness over your first purchase, how happy are you, or what do you think is missing in what you're doing and you couldn't do it still?
I am extremely happy. I always love having multiple projects to work on at any given time. I am like a workaholic by nature all my life. So I just personally love that. I'm happy in what things are doing. Like right now, obviously, because since the COVID situation started, things have been quite slow. But that I sort of understand that, that is how the market is right now. But things were going well in my side. What I would want to do is to focus on my entrepreneurship full time at some point. But I do have a lot of other commitments from my family and things like that. So hopefully once things are, sorted through, I would be able to make that switch.
Yeah, nice. It's fully going on with some serious talk and all those things. So I just have a switch of a question. We all wanted to know, tell us about your short film.
Oh no! When Aatira asked me, she said, we're going to talk about your business ventures. My short film was like, how did you find that?
I had to research, I'm going to ask you, and it's going to be an open talk, so I had to find it.
Okay, my short film was like a one-time stunt or whatever it is, I don't know. So this was when I was working in Bangalore. So actually a couple of people I knew from there wanted to sort of make a short film, and then they asked if I'll act it, and then I was like, okay, fine, you have to experience everything in life. I am big on that. whatever it is, no, you have to try it and experience it. I thought, okay, people are asking, let me just give it a shot. So I just did it. That's all. I don't think I'll ever do it again, but that one experience is enough for me. I don't know what else to say. I'm not an actress or anything. So
how did you
Sorry?
have the name? Who selected the name? Who just thought the name of your short film? What is the name? Can you tell us?
that Edayum Matrum Kadale. So see, the whole concept, everything, whatever that short film was one guy's vision. So the director of that film and a friend of mine, Gautam. So the idea, the direction, the script, the title, everything was his vision. So it was his brainchild basically. So he wanted to do that film and then he made it happen. That's all. The most important thing for everyone, what I have to say is, if you want to do something, you just have to do it and make it happen. Not depend on anybody to support you, encourage you, or anything, nothing. If you want to go somewhere, watch a movie and your friends are not there, you just go watch it yourself. If you want to try a new restaurant, you try it. If you want to travel, this happened to me a lot, okay? When I was in college, I don't know if you guys will be able to relate to it. Like, obviously, everybody wants to do a trip, right? As friends, when your vacation comes or something like that, and then you create a group and everybody's excited on day one. And then a couple of days go, and then people just start dropping off. Ki, I can't do this, I can't come, family function, parents are not allowing, this, that happens, and people just start dropping off. So eventually you end up not going on this trip. And then you're like, you were expecting to go on this trip with your friends, and then you miss that opportunity. So I learned this lesson late, that you should not be like that. You should just go. If you have to go somewhere and if the trip falls out, you should just go. That also I did. I tried to for the first time when I traveled solo, it was a very unique experience for me. My parents were like really paranoid. They were extremely paranoid about sending me alone. But I was like, no, I want to experience it. So I traveled solo once, and it was a very exciting experience in the sense it gave me confidence that, I can manage wherever I am, unknown country, I can manage myself and I can, take care of myself. That sort of a self-confidence it sort of gave me. So whatever you want to do, just do it. That's all. That's the funda to life, I feel.
So you said that like people don't come at times, they tell that their parents don't allow. Have your parents done something, and have you gone somewhere like without even telling them or something like that?
Without telling them, I have never gone. I have told, see, my parents are very, very supportive. Touch wood, I'm super lucky. So whatever I say, they're quite broad-minded and they're very supportive. So whatever I wanted to do, they were supportive. So I would always tell my parents and they would say, okay. There are situations where I've not been able to do or such trips initially when I was much younger. Maybe financially you were not able to afford something at that point in time. So I have been in such a situation. So then I understood the reason. It wasn't my parents blatantly saying no. There was a reason to it which I understood. And even later, so I just try to understand it, or I try to tell them, no, I'm doing, and I do it. So never, I don't believe in ever not telling your parents or lying to them. It just bites you back really bad. I've seen that with a lot of people. You tell them, get your consent, or you try to convince them, get them to agree. Or if you just want to do it your way, you have to tell them that you're doing it no matter what you say, and then do it. You can't just travel off somewhere without informing your parents. That's just really irresponsible behavior.
Yes, nice. So what you come tell is, you just inform them, or you'll have to struggle to ask them permission.
You have to keep them on the same page.
Yeah.
Not all parents will understand. Some people might be fun, friendly parents, they might get you. Some people might have some concerns. If you explain to them, they'll understand. Some people just won't understand no matter what you say. So that's a tough spot to be in. Thankfully, I have not been in that tough spot. But even if you are, you just shouldn't do things without telling them. Even if you're doing it, just say, no matter what you say, I'm not going to care, I'm going to do it, but you have to inform your parents. I feel that is what I would do. It's all my personal, I would do that if I was in such a situation.
Yes, nice. you're just spreading positivity throughout this half an hour, I suppose. And even a lot of your Insta post is all about positivity, all about frankness, I suppose. What gives you that positivity?
What gives me positivity? Nobody's told this to me. You're the first person, so I have to think about this. See, I just I was brought up that way. Honestly, Varsha, like if there's one thing that I would say, like, you know, not my parents, like my dad taught me, or that I was raised up with that mindset, it's think positive. So right from when I was a little girl, that's the only thing that my dad has ever told me. You know, it I would say it's ingrained in me. It's to think positive. You know, I am the kind of person, like some might say it's stupid, whatever, but I used to always be like this. You know, when I was in college or school, I'm a slow writer. Like you have to take examinations, right? You have your 3 hour examinations, whatever. I am a little slow in my writing. So most often than not, what used to happen, I never used to be able to complete my answer papers. There used to be like a 5 mark question or some mark, 7 mark, 10 mark, 3 mark, whatever, depending, that I used to leave unattended in the paper. So I used to so I know I didn't attend that question. So I know I won't get marks for that. Say I've written only for 95 marks. I haven't written for 5 marks. I would still hope to get 100 on that paper. I used to hope that I would get 100 on that paper. So that's how I used to hope. But so what used to happen, I used to get a 95. Like I used to want to top the class. I used to still hope I have to get that 100 even in spite of not writing. And I used to top the class invariably. I used to be happy. So I sort of, so that's what I told you, right? So I am like that. Maybe not realistic in some ways, but I feel you just have to think positive for yourself. Otherwise, there are so many things to pull you down. If you don't think positive for yourself, I don't think you can get anywhere.
So yes. So again, here you mentioned like there are situations which can pull us down. So when you had a few mood swings, being it in college or your workspace or wherever it is, how do you handle with it? How do you think we'll have to handle with it?
Honestly, I might just like, I have quite a temper when it comes to that, because I'm quite a perfectionist. So everything has to be done perfectly. And more often than not, what happens is when you're working with a team, be it in my college days, during my bridge, or in any other ventures, whether you're working with a team in office or your employees, anybody, when you're dealing with them, your level of perfection is never going to match with their level of perfection. You can expect them to do their best, or you can expect them to give their 100%, but there's always, you know, the ruler or the meter is going to be different. You're getting what I'm saying, right? What a job well done or perfect for you may not be the same for the other person. So that was sort of a learning for me. So I used to be like, but it used to be something what used to be very basic for me never used to be very basic for somebody else. So then I had to sort of learn and understand that people think differently. Everybody is not on the same page always. So initially I used to like lose my temper when, you know, things were not going as planned, or when a job is done and it's not done perfectly, and then you end up having to redo it. For instance, there's a customer order and it didn't get finished to perfection, what you want to offer to your customer in that brand image that you want to maintain. Then you have to end up redoing it because I'm not comfortable in shipping a semi-cooked product. So my stance would be to redo it, and the other person's stance would be, but why, it's good enough, we can just ship it. So when things like this happen, I get really irritated and I have lost my temper. But now I just figured out that having a very clear-cut process and explaining every little detail to the other person very clearly sort of makes a difference. I feel in anything, be it in any personal relationships or with respect to your work, is if you sort of set it straight to the other person, you know, even in the beginning, sort of communicate that this is what is expected, this is what the standard is. Or in a relationship, if you're in a relationship, You tell them that this is how I expect to be treated. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. So you have to, I feel setting the expectations straight would sort of somehow solve that problem. But otherwise, people have different natures. Some will be like patient no matter what. Some will just lose their temper. Those things people can personally work on. That's a personal journey, how they want to tackle their behavioral or characterial traits. But otherwise, I feel setting the right expectations and having a proper process sort of in your work life and your business life would solve this problem.
So yes, that is so nice. Like it still makes us like, what will she tell? Will she tell more? It's like that. Okay. So like we've got a few, like not a few, a vast thing from you. So now let us know, like just tell us about your Bridge PSG.
So Bridge PSG is actually an online magazine for PSG, and it's a group of organizations basically. There was no such thing. So this was something that we started. So we were a team of 4 people who were the co-founders for the Bridge, and we started this during my final year of college. What we wanted to do was, there was a lot of things that I noticed that were happening in college that were not getting documented anywhere. There were a lot of alumni from PSG. In fact, for any organization, if you take, there'll be a lot of alumni who are doing interesting things, who are doing different things, who have a lot of inspiring stories to share. But what happens once they pass out, the current batch who are joining in that college, they have no way to sort of access that information or to know that there have been such amazing alumni from the same institution who have done certain things. And we wanted to give the students sort of a platform to share their voice, to cover campus activities, and to sort of do their own, sort of a micro journalism in the space of the college, where people can, groom upon their interviewing skills, their journalism skills, on their writing skills. So the Bridge was sort of born from the want to sort of address all these things. It was, and it is till date, sort of functioning as a college body. It's a very interesting story. The first time where I had to like lead people was during the Bridge. Like I have worked in leadership roles before that, right from school, but then it was always like I wasn't the first hand only person managing everything that was happening, from a single message to everything which I was only responsible for managing. That sort of a learning opportunity I feel I got from the Bridge. And that sort of molded me and gave me a lot of confidence in participating or taking the responsibility for projects at work or even with my entrepreneurial journey. What I have to say is, guys, so there might be some people who might think, if I get a big opportunity, like if there's something new that has to get started, or say there's a college club, I presume in every college there will be a club. For example, there's an entrepreneurship club in your college, for instance. I will only be in that club if I get to be the secretary or the joint secretary. Otherwise, I'm not interested in being a member, just a member. So people should, not have such an attitude. You have to first learn to follow. Only then, you can get other people to follow you. That is very important. So right from my first year, for 5 years in college, I used to participate. I used to listen to all the other seniors, all the other people who are in leadership roles, what they are saying. I used to volunteer to do things. I used to volunteer to organize events. Like if there's a 3-day fest happening, there might be a bunch of events happening, and you want to take the ownership for one event. So start small and then prove yourself. So only once you prove yourself, you will be given bigger opportunities. So you have to build your credibility and reputation that, okay, so and so person, if I'm giving them some responsibility, they will fulfill it. Only then you will get opportunities of the higher level, is what I'm saying. You can't be like, okay, if I am getting into politics, I have to become CM. Won't work like that.
So yeah, so that one word is is always which we all of us have to follow. So before even I go on with the next question, people out here, if you have any question or anything related, you can just text me or just DM me in the chat box so that we'll ask her any question you want to. Just tell me because we'll trigger her a little more. So next, it is obviously going to be about the kids school box. Tell us how it began, how is it going, what being an entrepreneur, how did you do it?
The journey has been amazing. You know what? The thing with entrepreneurship is whether your venture is successful or not successful, there are 100 things that you have to learn. So if you are somebody who enjoys that process of learning and doing things on your own, then entrepreneurship is surely something that you should consider venturing into. Because for me, I learned a lot of things once I started. Just to get started with, you have to know how to choose what product to put out to your audience. You have to know how to create your product catalog. So you have to know and study the market. You have to decide what will work, what will not work. You have to know when to pull out something that's not working and switch to something what's working. You have to enhance your communication skills in the way you communicate and respond to your customers or you talk to them. You have to learn branding because you have to create a brand and you have to know how to manage that brand image. You have to learn social media because today everything is social media. So you have to learn how to grow on social media. You have to learn everything from how to pack a parcel and send it to being in a situation where there's no packing material. The packing material is over and the next load will come after 2 days, but there are shipments that have to go out. So at that point, what are you going to do? Everything you have to learn or know. It's sort of like, I feel like being a mom, yeah, you have to know everything. That's what my mom says. If you're born as a mother, you have to know everything because I too go to my mom for everything, from stitching to makeup to health to cooking to managing the house to, you know, all the multiple roles that our moms are donning these days. So I feel entrepreneurship is like that. And you have to do it yourself to know how to do it right and in a way that you like it. Only then, once you start hiring people and once you start, you know, delegating the responsibilities to them, you will be in a position to sort of educate them and to teach them how to do it. Because if you don't know how it's done and you just directly walk up to a, say, marketing agency, they'll just walk all over you unless you know how it's done. So whether it's small, start small and then scale as and when things go in your own pace. So that is what I have to say.
So, okay, all this aside, tell us about Zero Hunger.
Zero Hunger is like something that has been in my mind for the past 2 years. It all started on a very personal note. The other things are all born out of my ambition to do well career-wise or financially. But the Chimi.in is not like that. It is something that I personally relate to. I have been pretty conscious about the kind of food that we have been eating and, you know, all the stories about how things are adulterated and there's shortage of quality food or quality food is super expensive or you're paying super expensive price but you don't really know if it's quality food or if it's the same food. So all these things used to like bother me a lot. And I started really researching and studying a lot on this because I wanted to somehow, for my family, it's a small nuclear family. It's my mom, dad, me and my brother. So for ours, so first, you know, it started as for me and my family. I wanted to like figure out, you know, how we can have a very safe and healthy food sort of a situation for us. Like I was initially exploring where we can buy, from whom we can buy, who's selling quality products. So this is where the journey started. And then I sort of figured out that I was more interested in you know, sort of growing my own food, which is what I want to ultimately achieve. That is sort of my long-term vision or dream, which I am yet to sort of fulfill, is to sort of grow my own food and, you know, to eat healthy food. So when I was reading up on this is when I was under the impression that, since the food factories came into play, that's when all this adulteration and low quality started. So I was under the impression that there is abundance of food for everyone. Because there are still stats that say that there's a lot of food that is not used. As in, today the world is producing more food than what our population is actually consuming, but still there are a lot of people who are hungry. They don't get good food. They're either hungry or they're either malnutrition. So that is when I uncovered this, when I was on this personal journey to sort of get healthy food for my family. And it was really bothersome to me because I am, as a person, very conscious about the food I eat, and I'm very particular about the time when I eat. So like, I have to eat at the right time. Others, I'm the kind of person who will get cranky and hungry. I'll become this cranky child if I don't get food on time. So I thought like, okay, I am what do you say, God has blessed you with so many things, and still you sort of expect certain things. You take that food that you get, at every meal for granted, right? Like, at least for most of us, we just take that meal or the food that we get for granted, or we waste it, or we say this is not good, I don't like this upma, so I'm not going to eat it, or we do these kind of things. And then I thought, that's when I was like, okay, we are just so gifted and blessed, and there are a lot of people who don't have food even today, even with the kind of production that is happening in today's environment. So I thought I wanted to like do something, and food is something very basic, I feel, and without that nothing else operates. Like, imagine if you haven't eaten for like a week, you wouldn't care about anything else, right? You would only care about that food. So I wanted to like sort of do something on an individual level, like to whatever the best of my ability that I could. So when I was discussing this with my family and everything, they were like, there are so many sort of organizations, etc. You can just like donate right to them who are dealing with this kind of, who are already working in this line of work. You can donate some money on a monthly basis from your paycheck, whatever. But I didn't feel like that was something that you could consistently do, because I noticed that I have my financial commitments already. All of us don't hail from a very wealthy or affluent families, right? Most of us are middle class, or there are a lot of basic necessities or your own family requirements, maybe your siblings' education, or anything like that, which you might be in a situation to sort of financially do. So many people, even if they want to do to help out others, they might not be in a situation to shell out the money to donate or to do something that might make that level of difference or impact. So that's when I thought like, okay, I have experience with e-commerce, and I knew I can put in the effort and work to do what I wanted to do. So that is when this idea of Cheemy was born. So Cheemy is basically a for-purpose business, in the sense it is a registered business which operates as any other business, but the profits, whatever the business generates, like I don't take the profits from that business and I choose to donate it to charities which are working in this line of work. So what this enables me is to sort of consistently donate without having to depend on my salary. I am able to put in the work and the time which I can do and I want to do, and I am able to like consistently donate the profits from the business towards charities that I feel are doing work in this line of work and making a difference. So that has been the journey and thought process behind Cheemy. I didn't want to burden my family for something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to start an NGO or something like that and depend on external donation or funding, because again, that also is not a space which I felt like I wanted to be in at this time. Like, because it's not consistent. People might donate once a year, twice a year, thrice a year on their birthdays, anniversaries, but that's not something that is consistently, doable, right? On a monthly basis, everybody cannot do that. And they don't do that unless you're a big company and then you have a specific corporate social responsibility budget that's shelled out. For normal people, it might not be possible. So with all of these, that's how my idea for Cheemy came in and the business came in.
Okay, so regarding teamy.in, okay? In how did you even get the idea of doing a coconut shell ball? Because that's totally a new venture, right? So how did you even get that?
Yeah. So because I wanted to create a conscious sort of an eco-friendly brand with Chimi, because I felt like that is the way forward with anything. And this idea of coconut bowls and repurposing them like scrap bowls that just get thrown away, I felt like that was a very interesting aspect. In fact, when I told this thing to my parents, they were like, yeah, in olden days, like when we were little or during our grandparents' time, the people used to use coconut utensils. It was quite a common thing. And then obviously we started shifting to other metals like brass and steel and whatever, and that sort of went away. So I thought coconut scrap has a lot of purposes, as in ways in which it can be reused. So I thought, let me just start off with that. I wanted to like repurpose something that is going to waste and create a useful product. And I sort of wanted to add, I am a very artistic person. I love artwork and, anything that's beautiful and, like a piece of art. It's just like, I can't help appreciate it, or I can't help buy something like that. I am like that. So I thought, okay, adding this kind of artwork into this bowl would create a very unique product which is not available elsewhere. So that's how it was, like this thought and my personal interest in artistic things sort of combined, and I sort of created those bowls.
So nice. It is so nice to even hear it. Like I could even feel like what joy you would have had.
Yeah. Sometimes I just love each piece of bowl so much that I don't want to sell it. Yeah. Like I'm just like, oh, I love this so much. Can I just keep it? My mom will be like, how many do you want to keep? Don't do it if you don't wanna. Sometimes you just love the work so much that that's how it is for me.
Yeah, so even your face shows it now for us. Your joy is just being seen. Okay. Now, like all this is going ahead, but how do you brand a few things, or how did you initially start branding a few things of your own project, and what are the ideas, effective ideas, like how do we brand if we are going to do something?
So initially, when I started off Kitschbox, that was my first time. It was a trial project for me, right? When I started off, I had a few products that I had created for this purpose, and I started off with just nothing but an Instagram page. I just created a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and I sort of put my products in there, and I was trying to gain some following and get some orders. So what I was trying to do was a very small scale, low risk proof of concept to see if people are liking this product, just basically to see if somebody is willing to give their money and buy it. So I would have done this for about 6 months. I did this. That time I didn't really think much about a brand or sustainable processes or how to take things forward, anything. So that time I was just doing to like prove to myself, is this working or not? So I spent 6 months of time in that learning. So you have to first do that before you invest in branding or anything, right? You have to talk about it to people, you have to share it, you have to see. And even when you're taking feedback on an idea, if you're talking about it to your friends, there are two things that can happen in that case. A, because they're your friend and they don't want to hurt you, they'll be like, yeah, it's a fantastic idea, like your partners, friends, and family. Or they won't know much about that market area in which you want to do something, that the feedback that they give might not matter. Like for instance, this comes in with a product pricing or even a product, because everything doesn't appeal to everyone. So you have to understand that initially. So if somebody says no, it doesn't mean it's a no for everybody. So initially I spent that time in sort of making my products, like showcasing it to as many people as possible and sort of seeing the response. And then once I got that confidence and I started getting orders, that it was just becoming too much for me to sort of manually manage. When people are DMing you the orders, it's just very tough to sort of manage it as one person. And I had a day job, a full-time day job at that. And you know how it is for a software professional. There's no timing. We just have to expect it to work how many ever hours it takes to sort of, deliver the project. So everything that happened in Kitschbox happened out of necessity. So at that point in time, I felt like I need to find an efficient way to do this. So that's when I started building the website. I didn't make enough money from the business at that point in time to hire somebody to do the web development. So obviously I did it myself. So my process was very incremental, like, one step at a time process. So once the website was there, so when I was designing the website is when I really thought about, okay, what the brand, the vibe, the colors, I thought about all those things. And that's when I really thought about, okay, what is the brand packaging going to be like? All these things I sort of put into place at that time, after 6 months, after really trying out that it's working. And then I sort of took it forward. So it's always very important, whether you're trying out something with your own money or somebody else's money, you have to be very cautious initially and take baby steps and be sure. Because if you're just asking 10 people around you, that is not valid feedback. You can't invest your effort, time, energy. Even if you're not putting in money, the number of hours you spend sleeplessly working on that is your energy, right? That you're putting into it. So don't do anything just as, some people might just start off, okay, I'm starting this business. Initially only I will start off with 50 lakh rupees. Hire a big marketing agency, hire a brand manager, do big photo shoots, do everything, have huge market spends, and produce products also. They would manufacturing also, they would do in the hundreds and thousands. That for me personally, I feel it's not the right way to go, or maybe because I come from a very non-business background. So for me to personally gain that confidence for myself, I did it one step at a time, or not, I don't know. But because you guys are all college students, and if you guys have any aspiration like that, I feel it is suitable for you to do one step at a time and prove it to yourself and to others. And once you've proved it, now you can go to anybody, knock on anybody's door for any kind of support or managerial support or funding support. You'll have something to show. So I would say, but the story was different for Chimi. Because I had learned how e-commerce works. I had learned this. I had like a 3-year experience in myself. So when I started Chimi, I knew all these things eventually anyway had to be done. So I might as well do it right now. That sort of a shift happened for me, but that came with experience. When you're doing it for the first time, I feel you have to do it one step at a time. And with regards to branding, what the best way is to tell your honest story. That's all. You be honest and tell your honest story, because that's the only thing. Whether that story works or not doesn't matter, but you can't really, if you're trying to make up something what you're not, it's not going to last. So I would say, start off, everybody, that's my thing. When I started Kitschbox, there wasn't really like any purpose, or it was just born out of my passion and interest for the kind of products that we sell. But the thing with Chimi was different. So if you say Kitschbox, there's no big backstory to it, because there really is no big backstory for me personally. It was something that I did for my passion and things that I love, the products that I love, which I'm putting out, and I'm showcasing my artistic talents there, and building on my entrepreneurial abilities, and trying to create an additional source of income for my family. It's a very straightforward thing. So I don't have a story to share. So what is the story there is the products. That's all. But that's different with Chimi, where there is a story why I am doing it. So I'm sharing that story. So I feel any brand, you have to keep it honest and tell your honest story. Some people just try to make up something which is not. I feel like people are very smart. You can't really fake it till you make it. I don't know. I feel take one step at a time and make it.
Yeah. look, from nearly like an hour, every
Yes.
time you tell something, it's like you build up one tagline, which is always everyone I keep noticing. I am noticing like everything you finish, it is ending with a tagline. You know, in that one sentence, you
That's
can.
really unintentional. It's just, I'm just talking in the flow, but whatever I'm saying is, it's just what I'm saying. I don't know.
So nice. Lastly, one last question. We've totally spoke about you. How come,
Yes.
like, how did you manage to make a team? And finally, like, what are the qualities, or how is it working for you? A team, a so-called team when it
Yeah.
comes.
Yeah. So once you start off as a solo entrepreneur, which I was for a very long time, for I would say about a year and a half, I was solo managing everything. From then on, then once you start delegating, there are a couple of shifts that have to happen. You have to learn to trust the other person who's, you know, to whom you're giving some responsibility. And you have to learn how to communicate with them in a right way to make them understand. And you have to always know that their best is not going to be your best. Otherwise, you can't really work with people. And so then I figured out, okay, these things I'm very specific about, and it's not working out if I'm delegating to other people, so I will only do those. There are still certain things which I do like that, and there are certain things I feel I am comfortable in delegating. So while coming to people who I want to work with, or they have to be dedicated, in the sense the first quality that I want is, if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. Like if you're saying that you'll get this done by Saturday, you have to get it done. So that accountability is the most important thing. If somebody is interested in learning and they have accountability, I feel those two are the most important things, because every other skill can be learned or taught. Any other skill you can learn or teach them, you know, if you have that interest. So you have to have that interest to learn. And when you're working for someone, I feel accountability is the most important thing, because I can teach you if you don't know something, or if you have any doubts, I can clarify it. And then I'm giving that work to you, and you say you'll get it done, it has to get done. If that is not happening, I feel I'm not okay with. And thankfully, all the people I am working with are like that. So blessed that way.
So nice. Like you blessed in all the ways, I suppose, because it is only because of your own initiative you being blessed. It's not just luck or something like that. So thank you so much. It was like, what not from you? What not from you? It was like, what can't she do? It was really, 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 really.
Thank you so much. I think you're exaggerating a lot. No, not like that. I'm a very,
I
normal
think like
person.
most of the people might agree, because we know nothing is all new for us, and when we have some entrepreneur, being girls, when we wanted to do something and we have some stagnant, like we cannot do, you are one big example for us, like you can do. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being so patient and answering for all my questions. It was
No
all just
problem, no problem. It's nice because she said it's like all college students, and I was like interested. Now it's been quite some time since I passed out of college, so I thought it will be nice to see all the young people, young vibes.
So thank you so much. From my side, it's done. So people, if you have any queries on, or if you wanted to ask us something, please go ahead, unmute yourself, and you can speak.
So just out of curiosity, like all the audience here, like are they all like people who are interested in entrepreneurship, or is it like a generic audience?
No, it's like when we even plan of having a guest with us, we just have a so-called like form to even know like which people to take and like who will be most attracted and all those stuff. So like it's been an hour and we still have 25-30 people with us, which means like they are still wanting something from you, and I think we've got mostly everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Guys, if you have any questions, I can help you out. Even with its college or whatever be it, you guys can ask.
Hi, ma'am. This is Adira here.
Hi,
I have a,
Adire.
I have a question, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Hello.
I can hear you.
You're audible. You're audible.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, during this COVID situation, many business related things have faced challenges.
Correct.
Did you face any challenge during this COVID situation, and how
Yeah,
you handle it?
yeah. So the biggest challenge was reduction in the number of sales. Like obviously, when things were doing well, the number of orders and our gross targets were higher. And then once COVID hit, like initially, there were no like shipping itself didn't resume for a long time, right? And then only the essentials were allowed shipping. So obviously, during all those times, we were like completely shut. And then even after once shipping has resumed, it's very slow. There was only surface based transport. And obviously I feel like people also everywhere, people are facing some sort of an economic hit, that I feel the people's spending, what do you say, the priority of spending their money has also like slightly changed. So obviously there's not going to be any much of a difference when it comes to businesses that are dealing with essential products, but when it comes to products which are not of the essential, so what we are doing is personalized gifting. So it is something that if people don't have the funds or whatever, it is something that they can choose to skip, right? They'll be like, okay, this month there's no money, or this year let me just do something better next year. So it's always possible for people to think that. So I am in that line of work. So the biggest challenge that we faced was sort of a reduction in the number of sales, but at least now in the last month things have started to slowly pick up. It's nowhere near how it used to be, and I don't know how long it would take for it to be there. But I am a very conscious sort of an entrepreneur. I don't do like major leaps, or like I don't like do major, like I ensure that there's a lot of liquid cash always when I'm operating. So I don't lock in my capital in say something like a ton of inventory or something like that. So I have always been pretty cautious in the way I have managed the business, so that way I am still able to sort of consistently operate. So I feel this hit would be there with everyone. If you're a little smart with your finances, you can hopefully try to sail through this phase. But yeah, the major setback was a huge reduction in the number of sales.
Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you so much. Is someone else having any queries? We just have a minute for them. If not, we'll just move on. Okay. So one question here I've got. How do you face when people just ask for prices and just leave in your starting age? It's quite disappointing, right?
What people ask for?
Prices, like for the cost.
Okay.
How do you face them?
So people are asking for the price, but they don't buy like that. That's what they're asking.
Yeah.
Take it easy and go. It's part and parcel. You should not think twice about it. See, otherwise you can't. Guys, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be quite thick-skinned. Okay, not quite, really, really thick-skinned. Because there'll be a lot of people who'll ask for price, because there could be 2-3 reasons, and then they might choose to not buy. One, either they might not be able to afford that price. 2, they might think it's too pricey. Or 3, they might just want to know the price out of curiosity. They might have no intention in buying even from the beginning. So you can't take these things personally. You can't affect other people's behaviors to affect you personally. People who really appreciate your product and they want to buy from you, they'll buy from you. And you also can't exorbitantly price your products. You have to know what the market is and how much effort goes behind it, and you have to also price it accordingly. So it's a very fine line. I never feel bad if somebody asks for the price and goes, because we've seen different kinds of customers. People would be like, they would take hours of your time. Asking for a price and hearing the price and not buying is very easy. Nobody will think twice. What is really annoying is people will spend hours and hours and hours of time asking, explaining. They will even give you details and customization details, everything they would do. And this they would do over a period of 3 days or even a week. And then finally they'll be like, no, I don't want it, after so much of effort. So all these things will happen. You can't let all these things affect you at all. Initially, when I started, for me personally, I was just happy with the people who were buying from me, that I didn't care much about the people who didn't buy, because it was a sort of a journey of self-discovery for me itself when I started off. So you can't, guys, that's what I said. Now, other people's opinions and all, you should never let that affect you. You can't be an entrepreneur. They'll say, oh, everything sucks, or this is like that, everything they'll say. Or you might have given the most fantastic service that is possible, sometimes even at a loss from the company side, and still they will try to find fault. Every kind of people are there. You just have to deal with it and go ahead. Don't let these kind of things disappoint you. Even any kind of feedback. If you think you dance well, then you dance well. If somebody else is telling you, no, you don't dance well, don't take that feedback.
So yes, nice. Another tagline again.
Oh.
Okay, there's even one more question. Have you had any idea of some collaborations for promoting your brand or products?
We have done a couple of collabs, in the sense, not with other businesses, but we have done collaborations with influencers and social media celebrities. So with these kind of people, we have collaborated with them, specifically for Kitschbox. I don't do any marketing for Chimi, and because there is no money to do any marketing from, it's not like we take home any profit for that. So it's truly people who find it and appreciate it and hoping to grow by a word of mouth. So nothing like that I have done for Chimi, but for Kitschbox we have done a lot of collabs with these kind of people, mostly on the social media platforms.
So yeah, thank you. Like, we've got still more things. So people ask me, like, how do you manage your time? How should we manage our time when we even start up with something like this?
I can tell this now, but when I was in college, or even in my initial time of entrepreneurship, I was not like that. But time management is very important. You have to really choose where you want to put your time and energy. Initially, when I started off Kitschbox, and until I got in other people to help with it, it used to be a very hectic schedule. Like, I used to work till say 2 o'clock in the night, and then I used to again start working at 4 in the morning. So I used to wake up at 4 and then till 2 in the night. So this used to be my everyday schedule. And weekends, though, I used to fully work. A lot of things happen, and those were all decisions that I took. See, initially when you're young and you're working on something like this, you tend to miss out on a lot of say friends get-togethers or things like that. Like, for example, you have a work to do during the weekends, but your friends will be like, they'll make a movie plan, let's go. They'll make a lunch plan, let's go. And you will end up having to say no. And if you end up having to say no so many times, they'll be like, oh, we keep calling her, she never shows up. So these kind of issues will come. It's a very realistic issue that any of you will face. Even now, you guys are in Rotaract, for example. Every weekend, if you guys are working for Rotaract and not making time for your friends, they'll be like, oh, we are not important to her anymore, sort of a thing. So you guys have to find a balance. So that was one thing that I truly faced. But people are very important. For me, people are more important than work. That's my sort of priority. So you have to always be honest to them and tell them what your reality is. And if they're true friends, they'll understand you. And you also have to try to make time for them. Okay, once you missed it or twice you missed it, but then it's their birthday. And that day also, if you're missing it, then they'll get pissed off. So just try to, prioritize and try to show your face here and there. That way, your relationships and friendships, which are really important, will also continue. It's not only about work. Relationships are also very important, and you have to give time to them. Otherwise, they won't flourish. So choose. So try to work as much as possible, or try to alter your schedule. So sometimes I used to be like, there's an order that has to go tomorrow, and I know if I say no to this friend's birthday event, I can finish this and I can sleep maybe a couple of hours early. Every day I sleep at 2, maybe I can sleep at 12 because it's a Sunday. But you have to make that balance. Okay, that person is important, and meeting all your friends after so many days is important. So you go there, and then I used to do that. And then I used to stretch myself in the night. So these kinds of things I used to do. And initially I did this because it was just me, and there were too many things that I was trying to do. So this sort of a schedule, I do not recommend this, guys. I believe in the hustle, but in the long run, what I just told you is what I did, but I do not recommend that. It is not healthy. You can do that and push yourself, but then you will reach a peak when your body would just give up and be like, no, I can't take this anymore on a daily basis. That happened with me. You might end up spoiling your health. You might end up dealing with things like unnecessary weight gain or anything for that matter, So what happens, you're only working, you're not taking care of your sleep, you're not eating properly, you're not doing all these things properly. You don't take any time for yourself. So don't let all these things, like, don't do the mistakes that I did. You have to do extra hours initially, especially when you're going into entrepreneurship, but try to take time for yourself and try to take care of your health also. What I learned now after so many years of this hustle is it's very important to have a very good routine or habit for yourself. Try to build that habit, and it's very easy to build that habit when you're in college. I am realizing that now. I'm like, oh shit, if I had known this when I was in college, I could have done much better. But I'm realizing that now, after 5 years, after passing out from college, I'm realizing that now. So you guys, trust me, college is the best time where you can do 2 things, which are very important. I feel could be done in college, and I didn't do it in college. So it's a sort of a regret. I'm sharing it with you guys. Maybe somebody might find it useful. Everything else you can figure out later also. Everything else you can figure out once you pass out, once you start working later in life, kuch bhi you can figure out. So the 2 things are, 1, try to create a healthy routine for yourself, a healthy daily routine and habit. And the second thing is, try to do a lot of soul searching on what your purpose in life is. I feel like when you're in college, there's a lot of time that you have for yourself, because trust me, you might feel like you're in college and there's a lot of work already to do with your papers and your semesters and assignments and your extracurricular activities and your friendships and relationships. But that is the time when you have a lot of time, trust me, because once, at least for me, once you start working, and then once I got into my entrepreneurial ventures, there was just no time for self-care. That happened with me. But if you guys build a habit, a proper healthy habit for y'all since when you're in college, and then that habit will take you through. That habit will not let you, overwork yourself or to spoil your health or anything like that. I hope I like, what am I talking about as a habit? Matlab, not something too big, yeah. Just basic things like sleeping at a proper time, waking up at a proper time, like eating your food on time, eating healthy, just these basic things. You know, you tend to miss that a lot when you try to overwork. Like see, me for example, I never had sleep for a lot of time. I used to sleep at 2. Sometimes I never used to sleep at all, which is not good. So these kind of things I feel should be avoided, and it's important to have a healthy routine. Only then you can work for longer. If you don't have that, you can do it maybe for a year, but you can't consistently, you know, do that. So try to create these things for you. Another important thing that I face this once, because I'm in the software profession, for us at least in the company, there is no specific timing. If you take any software company, or most 95% of the software companies, they do not have a in time and out time like how you have in college, right? Say you report at 8:30 and then you're done at 5:30. So when this sort of a schedule is there, there's a default implicit discipline that you guys would have. Like say you have to wake up at 6 at least, then you have to get ready, and then there's a commute time involved, or people waking up and studying or whatever. So there's a proper routine, and because you woke up early, you would want to sleep at a proper time. So these kind of things are there when you're in college, but it's very easy to lose track of that once you enter the workforce, because that's the first time you start earning. That itself will affect with people's heads a little, you know, sometime. And once the company where you're working does not have any sort of a time restriction, and you can work any hours, so you might just sleep late, you wake up at 10, go to office at 11, and then you work till 11:30 in the night, and you come back late. So it's very easy to get into such a unhealthy lifestyle habit. So if you can avoid these kind of mistakes that many people fall into, I feel, yeah, those are things to be like, you know, things to just watch out for. Just keep it at the back of your mind. And when you start, this is all for the future, guys. Once you enter the workforce, once you graduate, and once you guys start working, at that time, just keep these things at the back of your mind. And once you notice some sort of a negative pattern that is, you know, coming out in your behaviors or in your sleep or food patterns, just, you know, be conscious and try to sort of, you know, course correct if and when necessary.
So finally, one negative you've revealed. But
No,
then you
it's
also
a very
start-
practical thing. It's a very practical thing that has happened, because see, so entrepreneurship is tough, and being a solo entrepreneur, and if you take most of the products that I do, they're all handmade. Everything takes a lot of time, and being in a full-time job, to be able to do both, realistically it's not practical if you didn't put in that time and effort for anybody. But you might tend to lose track of certain other things when you're focused on one goal. So just my takeaway for me was, you know, to sort of keep your plate balanced. So I just, for future people, don't fall into the same trap. That's the only thing that I have to say.
Okay, so nice. If I tell it again, you'll again start laughing. The next tagline is also out. Okay. Thank you so much again.
Thank
Maybe
you,
I
guys.
think it's
I
Time to wind
can't hear anything. I think your voice got cut like totally.
okay. Are you clear now?
Yeah.
I mean, am I audible?
Yes.
So thank you so much, all the 3 host clubs, for giving me this opportunity to have a session with you, and it was really, really inspiring. I keep telling this, but it really is. That is why I keep telling. So it's again over to the host. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Define goal, take action, stay focused, expect success, and nothing less. Thank you, ma'am, for such an inspirational talk that you have given us. And I hope a lot of girls who have been planning for entrepreneurship to be their career would have been inspired in the next level. And thank you, Varalakshmi, for handling the session so well. So now I request Road Tractor IPP Tangapandiyan Anna to address the gathering.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you, Angeline. Respected chief guest and the speaker of the day, Priyanka ma'am, and the host club, all the host clubs, President Dr. Yogesh, Dr. Angeline, and the Saji, and all the club members of various clubs, of the three clubs. Good evening to all. And I have joined an half an hour late only to this session, but till now it was their time. It is around 1 hour I am throughout this session. Like it was, as they have mentioned in the chat box, it was really inspiring one. When Adire said me about you, and we were discussing to whom we should call for an entrepreneur, or like an entrepreneur session. Every month we used to have this open talk in our club, and
Okay, nice.
this time we have an outside speaker like you, and expert, like we have to say, we have, after hearing
No
your
expert.
Yeah.
I am also still learning, guys. I am still young. Okay, I'm 27. I'm still young, but like I'm just sharing whatever I have. I'm no expert. I have a long way to go. But nice.
Yes.
So you guys usually have speakers from within your road track, is it?
Yes, and within most of the time we used to have within our road track and within our
Okay.
club itself. So
Nice,
this time we
nice.
have planned to bring from outside. So
Nice.
that's why when we were searching in search of an woman entrepreneur, like Adire has the hold on you, and she said like we can bring Priyanka to this meeting and have an session. So
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for
yeah,
reaching out
sure.
to me.
That's
I
our
had a nice
pleasure.
time sharing it with you guys. I hope somebody at least found it useful or somebody got something out of it.
Yes, of course, it was very useful, and we are looking to use you in a big platform as well. So, as your speech and your session was very attractive as well, and very nice and informative as well to all the young entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs. So, thank you
Thank
for
you so
that
much.
wonderful session. And
Sure. You guys can reach out to me if you want
Yeah.
anything, or if you guys have anything. If anybody wants to discuss anything, maybe just feel free to Instagram DM me. Maybe Atre can let
Yeah.
you guys know.
Yes,
Just
yes,
DM
yes,
me on
sure.
Instagram. I'm pretty active, so I can if you guys have anything, I can help you guys. If you couldn't
Yes.
discuss something here on a open platform.
Yes, sure. That's what. And thank you for this opportunity to address all the three clubs. And as part of the GRS, appreciations to all the three clubs for hosting this event. And it was a wonderful one. The Rotary Club of Monarchs IIVM, Rotary Club of Avinashi Lingam Women's College, and University, and of course the Rotary Club of Coimbatore Tech City. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Personally, I wanted to do entrepreneurship at some point of my life, and there was a lot of takeaways from you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would also like to thank Rotractor Immediate Past President Tangapandian, and Rotractor Immediate Past President Satish, and Rotractor Past President Kishore Babu, and all the cabinet members who have joined us in this occasion. And I would also extend my sincere gratitude to all the club members from three clubs who have been there for their patience listening. And thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adire. And now request Dr. Lokesh Barni to present the memento to the guest and disclose his closing thoughts.
So, hello everyone. Thank you, Priyanka ma'am, for being there and accepting our invite amidst your busy schedule. So, I want to address a few words about this entire session. So, the thing is, the entire session is full of positivity. You're such an optimist in this. We came to know a lot of things from you. So, thank you so much for inspiring us, ma'am. And as you said, you are an art lover. So, you are an art lover. So, you're an artistic person. So, we have a small token of love for you. 1 second, ma'am. So, a host can. So, is it visible?
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's lovely. Like, who did this? Is this like a digital work or?
Ma'am, actually it's a digital art, ma'am. Art Club editor made this for you,
Nice.
and Adire will be sharing you personally.
Nice. Thank you so much, guys. I love it. Whoever made this, tell them I really like it. I look really pretty in that, so I like it.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
ma'am.
much, guys, for
Over to
having
you.
me.
Our pleasure, ma'am. Thank you.
Final is not the end of life or an event. It is the beginning of new life